many of us have ever been in an argument? Look around, and I bet almost everybody has their hand raised. It's almost impossible to go through life without having to persuade someone of your point. And that's why this book, Presenting to Win, The Art of Telling Your Story by Jerry Wiseman, can help every single one of us in the audience, whether it goes from persuading someone that our point's good, or persuading them to buy a product, or how about persuading them to use our services. Each one of us in the business world need to have the ability to present in a winning manner. So I mentioned that we need to read this book, Presenting to Win by Jerry Wiseman. But who is Jerry Wiseman, and what makes him qualified to give us advice? Well, let me tell you, Jerry Wiseman is the author of 4 books. Yes, I said 4. He's prepared executives for more than 500 IPO shows with clients that include Yahoo, Intel, Cisco Systems, and even Microsoft. He has techniques that have helped over 500 firms. He's the world's #1 presentations coach, and he founded and leads Power Presentations Ltd. If you want to know how to present, this guy's your man. He gets paid top dollar to help executives all over the world better their companies and better their presentations. Just listen to what the founding CEO of Yahoo had to say about his book. Jerry Wiseman makes the challenge of producing and delivering effective presentations delightfully simple. Read it and benefit. How about another example? We can open his book, and in the beginning, we see a statement from Sue Boystrom, Executive Vice President, Chief Marketing Officer, Global Policy and Government Affairs for Cisco Systems, Inc. She says, clear, concise, and high-impact communications are necessary for every business executive in today's high-speed world. Jerry Wiseman provides leaders with simple tools they can draw on quickly in order to maximize the return on all of their communications efforts. I mean, look at all these people he helps, these huge companies. Why shouldn't we listen to what he has to say? I mean, he's the world's #1 presentations coach. Now that we know who Jerry Wiseman is and what makes him qualified to give us advice, let's talk about what he can teach us in this valuable book. He teaches us to look at 4 critical points in order for our presentation to be successful. The first that he focuses on and lets us know we should really understand is, what is our point B? What are we asking our audience to do? The second is, who is our audience and what is their WIFI? By WIFI he means, what's in it for you, as in what's in it for the audience. Next he tells us to look at, what are your Roman columns? Now basically Roman columns tell us to focus on clustering information together so that it logically makes sense and can flow. The next, why have you put the Roman columns in a particular order? In other words, which flow structure have you chosen? This could be a timeline, it could be reference. All sorts of things can lead us to put our information grouped together. And the last thing that I added that I found invaluable within his book was recognizing the 5 sins that most presentations commit. I think if you're able to realize what 5 sins most people commit, you can evaluate and analyze your own presentation to avoid making those same costly mistakes. Now that we know what Wiseman teaches us, let's go a little bit more into depth about what he actually means. What is our point B? That's the first thing we need to recognize. Jerry Wiseman states in Presenting to Win, every communication has as its goal to take the audience from where they are at the start of your presentation, which is point A, and move them to your objective, which is point B. Okay, so this seems simple enough, right? Point A is where we gain the audience's attention. Starting with a good opening argument, whether it be a statistic or a story, we draw the audience in. B is what we actually want them to do. So the importance of B is explaining to our audience what we want them to do and motivating them to do it and causing them to act on it. That's the whole point of point B. B is our objective of our entire presentation. We need to get the audience there. Know your audience and their Wi-Fi. What does that even mean? How do we get to know our audience? Well, it might take a little homework. That's what you need to focus on. Show how something will benefit the audience. Get to know them. Do some homework. See what kinds of things affect your customers, or see what kinds of things people use. Understand the needs of an audience. Let them know how your product or your service will benefit them. Don't focus on the features of it, but how your product will benefit the individuals you're trying to sell it to, or you're trying to get to have used them. Understand the needs of your audience. You know, I was just watching a commercial on TV, and it talked about how this new phone charger has the ability to turn itself off from charging my phone once my phone battery charges to 100%. Well, how does this benefit me? That's the only thing I remembered about the whole commercial, was that, wow, it's going to save me power and prevent me from having to buy a new phone because it's not constantly going to overcharge my battery. So remember that when you are presenting to your audience, focus on their Wi-Fi. The next two sort of relate to each other, so I grouped them together. Roman columns and putting them in a flow structure. Remember what I said about Roman columns? It's basically clustering your information together so that you can keep it organized so that it can flow clearly. Well, part of that flow is the flow structure. It ties into the Roman columns. You're going to want to organize your ideas based on what type of flow structure you're using, whether it's chronological, issues or actions, problems or solutions, forms or function, features or benefits, or maybe even a case study. Those are all things you need to take into consideration when you're structuring your presentation. Now that we talked about all the things that we could do to make our presentation work, let's take a look at the 5 things that we should really make sure our presentation doesn't do. Make sure that it has a clear point. You know, leaving the audience with no clear point at all is a bad thing, because who wants to waste their time listening to a presentation for an hour and walking away saying, what was the point of that? You know, make sure it's clear to your audience. A good way to do that is to review your presentation before you give it. Have an outsider take a look at it and see if they get what your point is at the end of the presentation. Make sure that you don't let the audience walk away thinking that there's no benefit to them. There should always be a benefit to the audience. A presentation that fails to show how the audience can benefit from the information presented just leaves the audience feeling like, once again, they wasted their time and with no motivation to do what you're asking them to do. Don't let them walk away like that. Make sure that your presentation is well organized and can flow fluidly. Don't, jump around from one point to the next and not give real detail on why people should follow an action or do an action, or how it relates or intertwines with other points within your presentation. You want to really use that clustering that we talked about earlier with the Roman columns, and make sure the information is grouped together. That's the point of actually doing that before you put your presentation together, so that everything can flow fluidly and it goes from one idea to the next. And make sure that you're not being too detailed. You don't want to give the audience too much information, because sometimes it's over their head, or they just don't need to know that much information about the topic. They need you to get to the point. And whatever you do, make sure that your presentation is not too long. It can really turn people away from listening to what your point is. Those are the 5 cardinal sins of presenting, so make sure the next time you have a presentation, you focus on not doing these 5 cardinal sins. Today we focused on many exciting new things. We were introduced to Presenting to Win, The Art of Telling Your Story by Mr. Jerry Wiseman, an acclaimed author who has extensive knowledge and background in coaching presentations all over the world. He taught us to look for our point B, he taught us to focus on our audience and the WIFI, Roman columns and putting them in flow structure, and he even pointed out the 5 cardinal sins of presentations. Overall, I'd say that his knowledge and extensive background has allowed us to open our eyes into the world of presenting in a different manner. He really teaches you to focus on the little things and make sure that you always have the audience in mind. So the next time you step up to that plate to present, remember Jerry Wiseman, Presenting to Win. He'll show you how to get that A.